Hello, you guys. So today I want to talk about this somewhat hilarious topic. I will admit that when this was happening on Twitter, I was giggling, I was snickering, I was screenshotting, I was DMing people about this, I was laughing a lot. As you guys know, I have been obsessed with fat talk, fat TikTok videos and responses, and to be honest, I probably will start doing my own at some point. Just because I think when you are a fat person and you're pursuing weight loss, it definitely is a big part of your life and you think about it all the time. So I want to just get into this topic and laugh, basically. Sorry, I was just looking at something. Okay, so what happened is Sydney Watson, she was on a plane, and basically she was sitting next to fat people, and apparently they were brother and sister, and they were both so fat that they were basically like on top of her. She was in the middle seat, and so she tweeted about it. And essentially, Sydney Watson, I almost said Sydney White, that would be something else. Anyways, essentially Sydney Watson, she got her Twitter going, and she got a lot of hate and a lot of a lot of people saying she was fat phobic. A lot of people, and then American Airlines tweeted her back and they virtue signaled. They're like, our passengers come in every shape and size, which that their Twitter is run by some SJW, likely millennial. Millennial on millennial violence going down. But I just found the whole thing interesting. I think as somebody who is fat, I just flew in July, and it was horrible. Truly, truly, truly horrible. And so I kind of wanted to talk about this as somebody who's been the fat person on the plane, and also as somebody who sees reality at the same time. So, and then I'll just give my take, essentially. But when I was on the plane in July, it was scarring. Now, mind you, I had lost some fat. I don't know the exact amount because I wasn't tracking it on a scale. I got a scale in July where it tells me my body comp and all this stuff. I wasn't really tracking it like that until July. But I know that I lost some fat and gained some muscle throughout this year because I was much more active starting in February and March. Even starting in November of last year, I was getting more active and my weight was staying the same. And upon getting that scale, I'm able to see that I'm losing fat and gaining muscle at the same time, which is something that morbidly obese people can do relatively easily, especially if you have your hormones in check. I did a whole ass thing. There's a playlist on my channel about it, if for anybody who's interested in my weight loss journey. But the point is, I was smaller than I had been a year prior to this flight in July. And the whole time I was horrified about flying. And I ended up flying, what's that airline called? Oh my gosh. I cannot think of the name of it. Oh my gosh. I waited too long to film this. It's the one where you don't choose your seats. Southwest. So I ended up flying Southwest, and I told my friend I needed to do Southwest, or I needed to do something other than American, just because American Airlines is horrible. On every level, it is just, I used to work with a company that contracted with American when I worked at LAX. I worked at the airport, so I knew all about American Airlines. It's horrible. They cancel flights constantly, and especially after the past, dark Biden winter, I knew that there was going to be an issue if I flew. My mom even was flying American Airlines earlier this year in February, and it was a nightmare for her. And it was really difficult for her to get back. She had so many cancellations. You know, you're waiting for hours on the phone. It's a horrible airline. It's just a horrible airline. I don't want to fly American Airlines ever if I can avoid it, because it is just awful, and it was awful before the pandemic. So I don't even want to hear that excuse. I was working at the airport in 2018. It was a nightmare. So essentially, I got on this plane, and when you're fat, it is kind of like a nightmare situation. You know, I didn't realize I had to register to fly, blah, blah, blah. I'm in Group C. The way that they do it for Southwest is A, B, and C. And essentially, if you're C, you're last. And being a fat person, going on a plane and not having your seat mapped out, it is probably one of the most difficult things. Like, I was sweating bullets before getting on every plane. And of course, I had to fly like 50 billion planes. But I was sweating bullets. I was praying it wouldn't be full. I was really, really nervous about doing this. And I haven't flown in 2 years. I haven't flown since 2020. Which, to be honest, I was a big fat hog that year too. But I think I was in a much different state hormonally. So I think I just didn't care about anyone else. I don't know. Maybe I was more like these people that she was flying with. But this year I was nervous about it because I didn't want to impose, and it was just scary. And I knew the flights would be full, and I don't think they were full in 2020 because, you know. So anyways, I was trying to, I was really, really nervous, and I was really trying to get this together. Like, I was trying to pick a seat, like, on the edge. It's like, if I can get the aisle, then I can try to have half my ass hang off the side. If I can get in the window at least, then I can try to just smash myself against the wall, you know, and try not to impose. But middle seats are kind of a nightmare in a sense, because then it's like, and really for me, my ass kind of bled under the armrests. The armrests were able to be down. Trust me, I wish they could have been up, especially the one when I was in the aisle on one of the flights. It was digging into my leg horribly. It was horrible. Absolutely atrocious. But regardless, my ass is huge. And so the ass was touching the person next to me. And there's nothing I can do about it. You know, if they could have just put some bars or something, put a cage on both sides of the armrests, you could have caged my ass in and it would have stayed. But when I would first sit down, it would all, you know, congeal in between the armrests, but it would eventually creep out. So I'm sorry to anybody I sat next to. And if Sydney Watson sat next to me, it would have been horrible. No, I'm just kidding. Well, she probably would have liked sitting next to me because I'd been like, oh my gosh, Sydney, wow. And then we could have talked about how awful Biden is the whole time, or, you know, whatever. We could have dished on some Elijah T. I would have loved it. But anyways, the point is, it probably would have been okay. But regardless, looking at her situation, as somebody who is fat, and like I said, I was trying to make these contingencies. I was trying my best, you know. I would hold my arms over myself as much as I could. And I made damn sure that the only fucking thing that was touching was my ass cheek, that I physically could not keep from touching someone else. Like, there's nothing I could do. And so to hear that they did this to somebody, which American Airlines, you choose your seats. So they knew that they were going to have somebody in the middle, possibly, and they were just hoping that there wouldn't be, which is insane. In today's world, every single flight is full. It's constantly full. You have to expect it. I think when I flew to California, there was only one flight that wasn't full, and luckily in that one, I was in the window and I didn't have anybody sitting next to me. On the other one, I was in the window, and a family was nice and they had like one of their kids. She was probably like around 11 or something. She sat in between me and somebody else. Because I think we were both fat. Sometimes the fatties kind of stick together a little bit. Like, I don't feel bad if I sit next to somebody else who's fat. And that's kind of what I tried to do, like, as a strategy with Southwest. Like, I tried to sit next to somebody who was fat if I could see it, because I know that they wouldn't be able to say a damn thing to me. So that was a strategy too. But anyways, the point is, I was just, you know, people tried to accommodate as much as they could. If flights were full, there's nothing you can do about it. But most of the time, people try to do something to make the situation better. And it sounds like in Sydney's case, it did not work out. Now, where I think the people went wrong was, first of all, just thinking that that was okay, that they're like all over her. That's really awkward. I find it incredibly weird that they had no awareness of that fact, that they just did not care. Also, you know, Sydney was talking in her story and she was saying that they were so big that one of them was so big that she couldn't put her table down. And that is like, that is mind-boggling to me. I can assure you every single passenger that sat next to me was able to put their table down. Like, if that's the case, that person was huge, okay? And it's like, it's not nice that my ass was creeping underneath underneath the armrest. It isn't nice. But you could put your fucking table down. I couldn't put my table down. But I've never been able to put my table down on a flight. So, but the person next to me, like, to think that they couldn't, like, that's crazy. Like, you have to really, really be in someone else's space. And it's like, it's just pretty bold. You know, if I was that big and I was flying with somebody who was a family member, I would definitely want to sit next to them, because then you can kind of be all over each other. You know, because you know the person, it's awkward, whatever. It's weird, but you still know the person. And as a fat person, you can put the seat up and you can just, you know, like if I was sitting next to my mom, which my mom is fat as hell too, I could just sit next to her and we could just smush together. You know, we could just be together and be like, and then we'd probably fight or something, and, you know, it would be weird. But at least it's my mom, you know? At least it's my family. It's somebody I know. And it's like, it's not as uncomfortable for somebody if you know the person. So the fact that Sydney actually asked the guy to change seats with her and he said no is insane. Because you have to give somebody somewhere to go. When you're in the middle, like, you should have the armrest. Like, you have to try to, people need to try to give you as much space as you can, because you really don't have any space. When you're in the aisle, you can creep out. When you're on the window, you can lean against the window. Like, you have to give that person space. And if both of your shoulders and everything are on the person, that is just crazy. I don't know how they thought that that was okay. I don't know how they thought that there was any kind of self-awareness about it whatsoever. Like, I don't know how they thought that that's just fine. And fuck you. I knew in my case that it was happening, you know, that my butt was creeping over. But literally, I felt bad about it. I was embarrassed about it. I tried my best not to move. You know, I tried to just, because if you move too much, then it's like you can really feel it and it's just weird. So I would just stay stone cold still. I did the best I could. Okay, I really did. And like I said, I hopefully will be losing before I fly again. And it was a reality check for me. Like, it was one of those things that I probably really needed to go through, just because, like I said, it helped me realize how far I'd come, but how far I have yet to go, kind of thing. But the thing is, like, what I don't understand about this is the fact that pointing this out is fatphobic, or that it is mean to point it out. It's like, there is a level, there's a couple of things. There's a difference between being kind of ratchet, being a little, like you're kind of shirking the rules a little bit. Like like if you're kind of creeping onto somebody's seat because your fat roll is hanging out or something, you're on a line. You're kind of doing something funky, but it's not that bad, but it's not good. And it's just that kind of thing. But the amount of entitlement to not give that person an out, if there is an out, like if I was traveling with somebody, I would say like, I gotta get the window or I gotta do this and you get the middle because then, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like it's just known. This is not rocket science. Anybody who cares or anybody who has any sense of shame or embarrassment or anything, any kind of self-awareness would have done that. There's just no excuses whatsoever. And so to say that she's fatphobic for pointing this out, for basically crushing somebody throughout the entire flight. And Sydney, from what I know, she's not a small girl. Like she's like 5'11" or something. She's kind of tall. And so it's like, you gotta give her space, and I don't know, like all I can say, Sydney, is I absolutely would have switched seats with you. Like I probably would have suggested it, because it's like you sit down and it's like this, you just think, oh, this isn't gonna work. This ain't gonna work. Like, this is bad. And so I don't know. There's a part of me that feels bad for Sydney in that situation, but there's also a part of me that gets angry because you don't need to be making excuses for people that are that horribly rude. I don't care what is going on. I don't care who you are. I don't care. There is something that you two could have done to make her situation better. You could have switched seats with her. There is no excuses. There's just no excuses. They had a way to make it better for someone and they declined. Well, that's fucked up. That is just pure entitlement. If you have a choice and you choose not to, that is insane. And it's like, I just think that anybody that would do that, they should definitely have to buy another seat. Absolutely. And with their two fat asses, they could have split the difference if they were going to do that. If you want to be that entitled, if you want to be that, like, I'm big and bad and I'm going to not give a fuck about what anyone else says, then you need to have the money to back it up. Because if you don't know how to do things ratchet style and whatever to where it can still work, then you better have the money. Because I understand both sides. It's a difficult situation. Because sometimes you gotta fly. Sometimes it's ugly when you're fat. Sometimes it's scarring. And it always is horrible when you're fat. It's just horrible to fly when you're fat. Because no matter what, it's an issue. Even if it's the perfect situation, you're going to be in pain. You're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to feel like you're dying throughout the flight. And also you bloat like crazy afterwards. I mean, it was intense. It was intense for me physically. I'm not going to lie. And I'm not healthy or anything. So I'm not going to sit here and say all this BS about this stuff. But what I will say is, Sydney pointing it out is not an issue. Telling Sydney that she needs to change her plans, or, oh, well, you didn't even buy the ticket, that doesn't matter. She still had to go through the experience. Somebody else bought it. She was entitled to at least having some level of comfort, something. She's not the one that is huge. So it's like, I just think for her to obviously go through this, be really angry about it, and how dare she speak up about it is insane to me. I think that people need to wake up. People need to wake up to reality, whatever it is. If you are huge, if you are so fat that the person next to you cannot put down their table, then, I mean, come on. You probably shouldn't be on a plane, or you're going to have to buy another seat, or you're going to have somebody else that you know sit next to you. Because that's insane. You cannot impose that on somebody who doesn't know you, who doesn't owe you anything, who paid to be there just like you. It is just wrong. It's wrong. And to try to silence the person, look, being fat, it ain't who you are. Don't take what she says personal, because it's nothing about your identity. Being fat has nothing to do with my identity. It's not the way my body wants to be. It isn't natural to be this size. It has been a big part of my experience. Maybe it has shaped parts of who I am, but it is not who I am. So when somebody talks about fatness, fat people, whatever, I don't internalize it, because I know that it is a state of being that can change, that is in flux. And if you take care of yourself, if you figure shit out, you're not going to have the problem anymore. So I think that we do need to have more national conversations about being obese, especially because there are things you can do to not be obese. It is not impossible for anybody to not be 400 or 500 pounds. I'm sorry. This isn't even like talking about being real thin or anything. This is like a whole other level. And the fact is, like, there's gonna have to be something, if this keeps happening, then something's gonna have to be put in place to stop this from happening. So that's just too far. So I get it. I understand if people took it personally, but I don't. I don't take it personally. I don't think Sydney is fatphobic or whatever. I think that she was greatly inconvenienced on this flight. I think that she was not expecting it to be that bad, and it was bad. And I also think she did play it up a bit, probably for the drama, or for the, she said she did it for humorous purposes. But I think she was mad, and I understand why. I think that in the end, Sydney Watson is not an evil, fatphobic person for pointing out what happened to her. It's just a reality check. It's something that a lot of people don't want to hear, because regardless, for most people that are overweight, it is an addiction. And when people call out addiction, people feel convicted. The reality shines through of what you're doing. The reality shines through of how things are. And so, although I found it hilarious, that reality did hit me a little bit too, and I take it in stride, and I'm going to push forward in my journey, because I don't ever want somebody to be like that with me, I don't ever want that to happen. And I want to be able to fly in peace. I want to be able to fly without having these issues, because I want to go places in my life, and it's just ridiculous to be this big. And somebody pointing that out, they're not evil, they're not wrong. It's facts. And honestly, it helps people when you point things out, when you point out the reality. You don't have to be nasty, you don't have to be harassing. But when you point out the reality of it, it helps. It does. Just kindly, bluntly speak truth about it. It does help, You know, I had somebody in my chat talk about it, and it's like, you know, I can do this. I absolutely can. And it's happening now, and I'm really happy. But the point is, take it in stride, take the reality check from Sydney. And I do think that we have to talk about this issue because a lot of people are really suffering with this. And we have a whole entire movement that's dedicated towards not taking it seriously and telling people that there's nothing wrong with it and it's always someone else's fault. So with that, you guys, I'm going to go. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.